everyone, and welcome to an extra chat for care at lunchtime today. Something we don't normally do. We are normally on the evenings, either a Wednesday or Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, doing a chat for care with all wonderful people who get involved in social care. But today is Friday, it's the end of the week, and it's the end of Carers Week. And I'm really delighted to have with us Anndeloris Chacon, and she's going to be talking about Bristol Black Carers. It's up there, their logo. And I'm in Bristol. I'm a Bristolian, and I met Anndeloris a few years back, and then our path didn't cross really for a while, and then I met her again, getting involved with other things in the city, and I thought I really want to get to know her a bit more and find out how Bristol Black Carers started, find out what it's about, find out who's involved with it, and crucially find out why do we need a specific organisation that supports Black carers? Why is that necessary? So all of those things I really want to explore this lunchtime, and I have to admit that there's a lot to get through, and I hope that people want to engage in this debate, especially in any time, but especially in these times, and really understand a bit more about the benefit that organizations like hers can bring to the community, and the great strength that there is within our carers and Black carers in this city and also across the UK. So I'd urge you, as always, and I'm sure we'll get to it appear across the screen in a second, do share, do like, do comment on all the stuff that we're doing. If you're watching us on YouTube, then please subscribe, because as you can see, we talk about care and all its facets, not just what you hear on the news. So if you're in social care, then do please subscribe. Also, if you are watching us on Facebook, then like our page, because we're doing several different chat for cares over the coming weeks. We started them just as coronavirus started to hit us a couple of months ago, and then we're starting to do more of it now. So please do get involved, share, subscribe, and all the rest. If you're on Twitter, if you're watching us on Twitter, then share using the hashtag #chat4care, and of course let's get involved in the debate. So I will have to excuse myself a little bit because I have got a bit of a cough. I think it's the hay fever. So I will kind of splutter through it a bit today. But without babbling on anymore, I just want to welcome Anndeloris. Hello, Anndeloris. How are you?
Hi, Sophie. I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me to share our message with as many people as possible.
Absolutely. And it's great to have you on, because I know you weren't feeling too well as well a couple of days ago, and you've kind of just made sure that you've come on and you're representing. So I really appreciate that.
Yes. Like you, the hay fever is getting the better part of me sometimes.
Absolutely. So one thing I'd love to ask you, to everybody or anybody who doesn't know what Bristol Black Carers network and the organisation is, can you just give us a bit of a taster on maybe how it started and how you're taking it forward?
Bristol Black Carers started in 1997 after there was a bit of research with carers from the African Caribbean community to understand why they were not accessing services. And again, the hurdles were people didn't understand the culture, the language that they spoke, and they didn't feel welcome. So the group was started to support carers in terms of providing a bit of respite with the sitting service, and also to help them navigate through the different systems, statutory or voluntary, to get them the support and care that they needed for themselves and their loved ones. So we cover both adult and young people, because everybody thinks care is only for the adult, but young people are doing it when their parents or guardians are ill. Some for a lifetime, some intermittently. So we need to think on a broader spectrum of what care is. And caring is another role in your life, not the one that you think is an obligation. It is an additional role. So please remember that you need help to deliver that caring role, to ask for it.
So one of the things that we've talked about in the past is the fact, a bit like what you're saying now, sometimes people, they just want to try and be resilient and do as much as they can, but actually there is help out there, and it's the bridge that you're trying to build is to help people understand that if you need help to come out and try and get it, because sometimes there are people whose voices feel that they're not being heard, and you're trying to support and represent those voices.
Yes, that is true, because again, we, as a trained nurse, I'm also a registered nurse, we were taught about medical conditions. But when a family member, the patient, is sent home to their loved ones, they aren't being taught about it. So they don't know what to do. So they will fumble and they will struggle because they don't understand the different things and stages that are happening with the illness. And that information is not shared with them freely, which is what I think the NHS has to look at and change. Because if we want the people at home to be supported properly by their carers, we need to give them information to do so.
So do you feel sometimes what the part of the role that you have in supporting Black carers is helping them to understand the information? There's so much information out there in terms of the way that people can access support and how you need to apply for it and how you can understand the different types of support out there, that actually it's not provided in a way that all communities can understand it because it's so bureaucratic. But with your experience, you're trying to navigate that bureaucracy and just make it practical for people.
And that is the key, making it practical, because we all keep saying that people are supposed to ask for help. But ask for help in what? If they don't know that they need it, they don't know that it is available, and they don't know what specialisms that they should tap into to help them carry it through. So therefore, again, communication is at a different level to the person who's actually doing what they need to do in order to care for loved ones. Again, for us, is helping a family learn to adapt to the changes that have occurred. Because if someone has had a stroke, the bathtub may no longer be that haven where you go and soak in the bath because they can't get in and out of it. And some people aren't aware that there's support to convert their bathroom into a walk-in shower. So no one told them, so they struggle to get that person in and out, or the person stays in the water for however long, and it creates other problems. So it's sharing information to help people to help themselves, because people want to do it, but they don't know how to if they don't know what's there.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like your services are just like vital. I want to talk about some of the things you've been doing outside of the practical support, but also trying to give carers a break and recognition. So hopefully this picture isn't too grainy, but it's this is an event that you held, I think it was last year. Can you explain a bit about this event to us?
That event last year was the fourth event we had, which is called Brims and Bows Tea Party. And it is a daytime event for the elders, and we made it intergenerational now for young people and the elders to come out and have tea and have fun, high tea, together, and just meet up with friends that they haven't seen for a while. We provide transport to bring those people who are able to come out on their own and take them back. The key of it is that we're holding it in the daylight, because most functions like these are held late in the evening and carers not able to go to it because they have no one to stay with their loved ones, or the person they're caring for is unable to come out at that time, but they need support. And to make it a whole community effect, we have to balance it off by inviting supporters so that they can see to the people who we are supporting. So it's not just about having an event for the carers, but it's having an event for the carers and their supportive network and their loved ones. So together we have fun.
Oh, that's just wonderful. And what did you have any feedback from people who went there? What did they say about the event?
Well, I've been getting calls and saying, oh God, we're missing this one this year
What
because they love.
what do you think holding events like that does to people who are having, caring roles all the time and sometimes get very little breaks or are just sacrificing a lot of themselves to do what they do? What do you think events like that really do to sort of support those people?
It builds their self-esteem. It allows them to dress up and feel nice about themselves and not only stay in the house, in ordinary clothes or work clothes all the time, but make them be the center of attention to come out and show off, especially now that we have the competition with the brims, which has the hats and the bow ties for the gentlemen. And it's really fun.
I love that. Where did you get the name from?
I got the name from one of my trustees who visited her daughter in America and had high tea there. And she said, can we do this? I said, we can try. And we did. And we had over 60 people the first time. And it has grown over the years.
That is lovely. So I want to talk a bit about you. So you've got this amazing career that you've had, and you said you started in nursing. What are the things that you've been specializing in nursing and that you've found that has helped you in this role?
My whole nursing career, I left in 2015 after 35 years of nursing. And now, well, it goes into 40 years being in the nursing profession. I have worked in Canada and did cardiac surgery. I have worked in special units and worked last but not least with the sickle cell patients in the last 11 years before taking over this job. And that's how I got involved with Bristol Black Carers. Um, it has been exciting in nursing, but I haven't regretted the change because now I can implement my teaching and sharing of the nursing skills that I have with carers and their families to make their life much easier and to help them navigate through the volunteer section. Um, my nursing career has taken me across the world because I attended the International Congress of Nurses Conference in 1985 before coming to the UK. I've recently been to Spain and Portugal to do presentations and talk about carers and their role in the community and their role in the family, because the caring role is different from being a mother, father, brother, sister. It is an additional role that someone has taken on. And it was good getting feedback at those international level that people say, it's nice to know that we are recognizing the carers who give care 24/7. And we're not talking about the care assistants who come in to assist them, who in the community are given the same name as carers, which I think is not right. Give carers their due space and respect because they're doing it 24/7 physically and emotionally. I love the feedback of supporting someone. Maybe it might be applying for benefits, and when they get it, the expression of gratitude that they share with the organization is fantastic. We just love helping others.
Absolutely. And I think it's invaluable that your support, the way that you work, you really do think about the individual and what they're struggling with and supporting them to get the support that they need, the benefits, everything. Because being a carer and having difficulties accessing information and everything else can be so stressful that just being that kind friend and helpful and knowledgeable as well, I think is really invaluable. Um, So I want to ask, people may think, well, you've got lots of carers organisations and there's loads of support out there. Why do you think there needs to be a Black carers organisation that supports people specifically? What are the other organisations missing, do you think?
One, the other organizations are missing a face that resembles them. Because if you go into an establishment and there's nothing looking like you, your first reaction is, I don't belong here. Then when you approach and you make a comment and their response is not what you think it should be, adds to that anxiety, and people say, well, don't understand me, and they pull back. So we need to have Bristol Black Carers to bridge the gap between services. The other organizations are needed, but we need to help people to get there, to access it, and to help the other organizations understand how they need to approach our people so that they feel welcome. Because if you don't feel welcome, you wouldn't use the service.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in terms of helping people to feel welcome, do you feel that those organizations are understanding and getting it, or do you feel like it's a slow struggle to understand what extra support needs to be provided?
I think since I've been in the UK, there's a lot of research that is being carried out to help them understand how to reach Black people, how to do this, how to do that. And what I'm finding is that there's loads of research packed up on a shelf and there's no action from it. And we constantly, since I've been in post, being asked to be part of research, but where is the change after you find out that, hey, the language that you're using doesn't sound friendly to us? When we use a different terminology to explain something, instead of asking us what it is we actually mean, you turn and say we are aggressive. So I don't think it's changing. There's some things are happening, yes, but it's more on an individual level rather than an organizational level.
Yeah. But I suppose it can be helped by organizations explaining how they need to be more inclusive or understanding or empathetic or whatever the kind of support might be. It's where engaging with organizations like yourself can just help spur that on, if you like. So do you think that, have you ever seen in your experience situations where Black carers have struggled where you think that if they weren't a Black carer, they wouldn't have struggled?
I would, maybe, because there's so many layers to that question.
Yeah.
Because the aspect of it is that, did they have the information in the first place? Right? If you don't have the information, then you can't access it. Mm-hmm. Then there's the other side of it, is that person willing to open up, to share, or feel confident that they can trust that organization when they try to explain? So again, we have all these little things first blocking before you actually reach, yes, I'm Black, and would they understand me? Because if they don't trust, if there's no trust, that initial pathway won't be open.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And sometimes with these things, sometimes you have to understand what your rights are before you even are able to access them. I find sometimes that's a difficulty, because if you don't have an organization that's saying to you, actually, you have a right to this type of support, or you should take this because you're entitled to it, then sometimes people miss out because it's not offered always freely like it should be, or people just lack that understanding and that information, and that means you lose out, which doesn't make sense at all. I remember you telling me about somebody who was entitled to support with, I think it was either like a commode or something like that, and they were adamant that no, they could do it by themselves, but they was really struggling, and you kind of broke it down to them to say, well, maybe you can explain that that situation to us rather than me babble on.
The thing about it is that what has happened with in our community is that when you become ill, you always want to go back to the way you were before you were ill. So therefore, anything that would remind you that you're not the person you used to be becomes an obstacle. So therefore, you don't look at it as a support or an aid, because you're trying to get back to where you used to be. And it's helping people to understand that after you become ill, you have to set a new level for yourself. And it's only when you accept that new level, then the things that are there to help you, you wouldn't see it as a hindrance or a reminder that you have become disabled. And it's having those conversations with carers and their loved ones that they're caring for will help them to be able to access things that they should use. And simple things like a walking stick is perception. And we have to work and help people to understand what needs to change in order for them to function at their new optimum levels.
Do you think there's sometimes a history of us not thinking that we're going to get what we need, thinking that, well, what's the point of me asking because I probably won't get it anyway, or anything like that?
Yes, yes. And that is where our organization comes in to say, we are here to stand with you until you get what you need.
That's
So
brilliant.
sometimes it will include writing letters and constantly writing letters to not give up until it happens. And even the level of care and support that somebody may need at home, when assessed, the organization say, oh, you only need 2 hours a day, when in truth and in fact, that person may need 6. But they don't have the energy or the strength to fight for that and accept just the 2, but then it puts them into more stress. So it's helping them to continue asking until the right level of care is put into place. And it's not easy. People, when they're not ill or caring for someone, get frustrated, get depressed, and find all their energy is put into fighting rather than caring. So we are here to help to reduce that stress of fighting.
And that's so powerful and so necessary. And it's a bit disheartening that you actually need to exist to do that kind of support. You would think that the systems should be kinder in the way that you're able to access the support that you need because you need it. You wouldn't ask for it if you didn't need it. But I think it's an amazing thing that you do to try and support people in that way. And are you, in terms of helping people to get that support and also speaking on behalf of the needs of people, do you work with other organisations? Are you working with the NHS as well? Do you have colleagues outside of that who support?
Yes, because I've worked in the NHS, I've been able to tap into some services and find out what's happening in certain instances and be guided by that. So that network has worked. We are now part of a group called Super 6 through BSWN, helping to build the sustainability of these Black-led organizations that are providing services in the community. We also recently joined the Support Hub, where most of the other organizations that provide care for the elderly have come under this head with COVID. And we have joined that to find out what is available, what can we do, what can we access, and how could we bring our service users to these services that already exist. But we have to bear in mind, we always have to say to them, we need to tailor it a little bit to our community, because the questions that are asked are for the white community in that context. So therefore, it doesn't relate to the inverse. So we are working now to be able to help people to understand that when you ask a question and you think someone understands it, that doesn't necessarily be so, because your interpretation and theirs is two different things. And again, like when you go to the GP and the GP use a word that they don't understand and they come away and say, my stomach was hurting me and the GP didn't really listen to me and he just gave me something to go away with. It's helping them to understand the process that you didn't explain clearly to the GP, so the GP didn't understand. So the GP did what he thought you said. So it's working those things in terms of everybody thinks interpretation is for a different language, but English language is also very hard to understand.
Yeah,
Because,
and I
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely 100% right, because it's like this dialogue you have between two people. And you say about the GP, you having to explain it in a certain way to the GP. Do you feel like the health services need to understand how to communicate better with non-white groups as well?
Yes, 100%. Because we in our communities have aliases for different parts of the body that the GPs may not be aware of. And when the GP uses a medical term, it doesn't relate to what the person knows. So it caused that misunderstanding. So we need to break down that and talk to people and have more community meetings where we can share that information with the professionals to say to them, okay, you're coming into someone's home and you're telling them about, well, we need to do an assessment of what you need. Instead of saying, let us work together and understand what will help you,
I think
right? They have a
that's
lot
great.
of things that, oh, tick, 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 tick. And when you walk away, that person haven't got a clue about what was organized for them. So
It's
we need to change how we do things.
it's almost as if you're saying, if you had the health professionals working in those groups, those community groups, like what you've set up, to have a dialogue, so you could talk and say, well, this is how we would prefer you to speak to us about medical issues, to help us engage and help us have a better dialogue, and saying, well, this is what we need, and then you can explain to us how it's going to work, just using a slightly different way of speaking to people. But you need those professionals to kind of engage with the community, and kind of have that understanding, that dialogue in the first place. um, so I hope that you'll get support in being listened to, because your approach seems that and I think it happens with a lot of things that we try to do for the Black community. It obviously it needs to help us, but also it's a fantastic way of working that helps everybody. I don't think
Yeah.
anything you said anybody of any color or creed would disagree with. And there's a lot that what you're doing within your organization is actually forward thinking for everybody. So I'd hope that more people would listen and hear and think, actually, we need to engage with organizations like yourself to improve the whole sector and the way we look at health and social care and carers, as a whole.
Yes, I think so. Because one of the things that we constantly don't do is to greet people. We always go to someone to question them without greeting them. And greeting them makes them say, hello, hi, how are you? How can I help? And then they would sit down and say, oh, this person really interested in me. So when you start to talk to them, all your questions will be answered without even asking every question. And when we stick to the regiment of where do you live, how do you live, da, 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 all that time, every time, the person feel they're not being engaged with. So we need to change how we approach that and engage with people, greet them, support them at their level.
Absolutely. And I wondered whether you had any thoughts about how Black carers or your networks are dealing with the COVID-19 situation. It's thrown so many things in the works in terms of even having those personal connections with our family. I know lockdown is now easing up. We're coming into the middle of June now, but how has that affected Black carers, the restrictions? Were they supported when that all this, has been happening?
Well, what has happened, it has definitely stopped our face-to-face interactions, of which both our carers and our team enjoy. Looking at it, we have the loneliness, the isolation, and not knowing who to call when you are at home. Even though there are loads of numbers and volunteers and support out there, it's not reaching the people who directly need to have it. But sometimes it may reach them, but they do not access it because they think somebody else is more deserving than they asking for help. So again, is helping people to understand that asking for help doesn't make you vulnerable, but it makes you being able to get the support that you require to deliver the care that you want to without stress.
I stopped my camera by mistake. Sorry about that. Yeah, okay, that's really helpful. And I also wanted to understand going forward what you think that Black carers need in terms of support now that the lockdown is being lifted and things are starting to change. Is there anything that you think? Oh, I know we're in Bristol, but whatever applies locally presumably would apply nationally. What generally Black carers could benefit from extra support?
Well, first and foremost, we are in the process of trying to get additional funding so that I can get additional staff to multiply the work that I'm doing. Because if I can reach 100 people, then by myself, if I have 3, 4 different staff, that's 400 more people that will be getting supported and being guided into how to make their life better. And again, all that has a knock-on effect on health, social care, mental health. And that would save the government a lot of money if they gave us the money to deliver, or organizations out there who are willing to help us provide that support in the community, because I would really like to multiply it, because it does make a difference when we give culturally appropriate, holistic, personalized centered care, because that person becomes empowered, and when they become empowered, they offer to help the community as well.
So it's almost saying give the community groups like yourselves the resources to support the community rather than a top-down approach saying we'll sort everything out and then tell you how we're going to work with it. It's enabling you to do that preventative work, which people talk about all the time, health prevention. Those are just words until you actively put actions and support around that, which is community support and intervention.
Yes, and community is supposed to be primary care. And we tend to be looking at it as tertiary care, caring for someone after they become ill, caring for someone when they mentally break down, when we know about months or years before they've been struggling and we didn't intervene until they crashed. So we need to shift from that tertiary level to the primary level, true primary level, intervening at the point at which somebody said, I'm not able to cope, and intervening at that time and saying, how can we help you? What do you need? What is your issue at this time, and why can't you cope? So when we ask those questions and they think about it and they work with us, we will find an early solution and
Yeah,
be
I
able to
think
support.
these are really wise words. And if anyone's listening and you're agreeing with Anndeloris, then please share, like, subscribe so you'll know. I think we'll do maybe snippets of this video and release them as well. So if you subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell, you'll find out when we've managed to do those. You can share them. And if you've got any comments as well, then do write them in the comments box. And we've got one here from someone saying that they're enjoying this interview, which is great. So that's good that people are kind of engaging and enjoying this. So thank you for watching. I wanted to move on to some of the wider stuff that's happening. And we've had reports, and I have mentioned them before on this channel, talking about the disparity in how the COVID is affecting non-white groups. And I have before brought up this report, and this is from Public Health England. That's just a graph there, not particularly amazing, but also there's something I've shared before from David Lammy, who is an MP for the Labour Party, and he did say again, and it reaches out to what you said, Anndeloris, about there being a review, to have another review, and what we really want are recommendations. So I'll see if this plays properly.
There are no recommendations in this report, no recommendations about employment, no recommendations about PPE, no recommendations about what you should do on the front line, given that many of these minorities work in the public sector. None at all. That's a small indication of what the government could be doing, but isn't.
So that is something from David Lammy, and he's talking about the Public Health England and the report that came out about the disparities for at-risk groups for COVID-19, how it's affecting them. And then there's a lot of argument behind it's not anything to do potentially with genetics, it's more to do with socio-economic issues. And I wonder, in terms of what should we be now very strong about, is saying we don't need your data. We've got data. What we need now are recommendations. We need action, and we need people to start doing stuff, not just talking about doing stuff for another decade or so. So you've said about funding and community engagement and support, which is vital, because you can't do anything without those tools. But also in COVID-19, considering that ethnic minorities are, or non-white groups, I don't like to say minority because we're a global majority, we are being affected by COVID-19 adversely. In terms of recommendations, what might come out, is there any thoughts that you've spoken to people or that you have around what extra support or protections that our community carers should be having in order to help protect us?
Well, the thing about it is that we have seen the articles about vitamin D. And yes, in truth and in fact, we are deficient with vitamin D. We know vitamin C is another one that helps build the immune system. And it's for us now to be mindful, be cautious, and look around us, because, again, we are going out in the community and we cannot predict what other people will do. So we need to protect ourselves. The virus is still around, but we're not sure who has it, when they get it, and how they will pass it along. Because, again, some people are asymptomatic. So as an individual, you need to be careful. You need to be drinking lots of water, taking care. If you're working, you need to make sure that for now, if you're going into your family, take those clothing off. Don't pass through your family with it, and wash it as recommended. For some people, it may mean carrying another set of clothing if they're going to work with other people and they don't have PPE, and put that clothing, change it where they're working, put it back into the bag so that they don't transport in and out for themselves and for the person they're caring for. So we have carers and we have care assistants. So both of them need to be mindful of how they move about in the community. Protect themselves. Mask has been recommended. You can make homemade masks, or if you can get other masks, fine, and talk to your different community groups and see how they can access that for you. But again, still be careful, be safe.
Yeah, and that's a good, strong, important message, because lockdown is opening. There aren't recommendations to support people. I think there should be. I'd love to see locally a workforce, because a lot of people who are Black, who are non-white, they work in frontline services. There should be some kind of task and finished group that involves community leaders like yourselves to say, what support should we be giving and providing for these groups who are at risk to enable them to work safely, because they are on the front line, they're supporting other people, they are working in it, but they're also going back and being carers. A lot of people who work in social care come back and they're carers, and then they're carers for people who are in the most vulnerable groups. So understanding that kind of like dual intersectional issues that people have, I think is just so important. And we'll see if anything comes out from the recommendations when we get them. Good. Okay.
Because again, they constantly think of the institutions. They're not thinking of the families themselves. They're telling people come out to work. Those carers who have been working in the front line in the NHS have families to go home to. What have they advised them to do? What if they're working on the COVID ward? Have they advised them? They still have to cook food for their loved ones at home, their children, their husband, whoever. What support have we given them? What have we advised them to do when they get home? Right? It's not just PPE for the institution. We should be thinking about PPE in terms of how to protect yourself going home from an environment that could be, well, contaminated with the virus. Those advice is not out there for our communities.
Exactly. And that's the problem. The specific advice that specifically talks to local communities is not there, and it should be there. It's not difficult to muster it up, but it's a start, along with extra funding, along with prioritizing maybe with PPE and other types of measures. The stuff that you said about, it might seem simple, but if you're working frontline and you're part of that at-risk group, you need to take extra precautions. I'm sure most people are, but some people are just so in the throes of work and survival and getting on. You might come home and then start making the tea and realizing I should have probably taken my clothes off, put them in the washing machine before getting into my household where I've got caring responsibilities for other vulnerable people. So all of this stuff, it seems really practical, but just having extra support, financial, information, institutional, I think like everything you said this lunchtime is just kind of highlighting that. So wonderful. Thank you so much. We're coming, I think, to probably the end of the chat now, but is there anything else that you want to mention, or is there anything coming up for you? What's the future for Bristol Black Carers?
Well, the future for Bristol Black Carers is trying to partnership with other Black organizations so that we can deliver a holistic level of care in terms of entertainment, exercise, complementary therapies, just making the range of services wider, because we know we have other organizations that providing that, and we need to link up to be able to access it. Because I would say our organization is not asset rich, but people rich. We have the people that need to have these services, and I need to know who they are and build a relationship with them, because trust is the key thing that keeps us going. And our relationships with our service users is very, very important. And we call each member, whether trustee, carer, cared for, family member, they are all gems. And that's what we have to remember. We are precious, and life is precious. Without people, this world, these buildings, these services do not exist. So we have to put people first.
Exactly. These statues, I might add, may not exist. Right. Okay. So one other thing I would say is I loved that. I loved everything you just said. It's all about people. We're not, some of us aren't asset rich, but we are people rich. And that is just exactly what it's all about people, about communities, about coming together. So I think that's a fantastic, before I kind of cough away, which I feel like is coming any moment, a fantastic note to end on. Thank you so much, Anndeloris. And for anyone who wants to learn more about Bristol Black Carers, we've kept their logo up in that corner on the whole time, so you'll recognize their logo when you follow them, which you must and should, on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and their website we've been sharing as well. Keep in touch if you think that their services might help you in any way. There's ways to contact them as well, and we've put them in the description box of this video. So thank you so much. It's very last minute we managed to scramble this together. And I wanted to interview you for ages, so why not do it on Carers Week? So thank you so much, Anndeloris.
Very much, and I'd like to say love and peace to all the carers, because without the care that they give, this world will not exist.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And take care, Anndeloris. You're a wonderful woman. Lovely to speak to you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So I'm not quite finished yet. I just wanted to say a few words of just reminding people, if you enjoyed this video, we want to do more things like this. We're going to be interviewing somebody who teaches social workers and talking about decolonizing the curriculum. We're going to be talking about what we need to do to support Black people who are also care workers. And within their institutions, what they can do. I'm organising a live stream to talk about resilience, but it's not just resilience for care workers, it's resilience for their organisations. How can those organisations help those non-white workers within their organizations? There's a fantastic report that discusses the snowy white peaks of the NHS. You might guess what that's all about. And we're talking about leadership as well within high levels within the NHS and within social care. That's all coming up in coming live streams and the like. So if you follow our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell, then your job's done. You do that all now. It doesn't cost you a penny. It's just a click, 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 and you'll find out when we go live with all of these things. And also just asking for your support, really. We're doing this, and I've got people helping me in the background. And we're just trying to get a wider discussion about health and social care. We haven't sorted out funding, so we're all kind of doing this in whatever time we can. But the great thing is, if you follow us and subscribe and all of that jazz, it does mean that more people watch and engage, and that's what we're doing this for. So that's just an ask for anyone who is watching right now. And of course, share, share, share. Next week, we're going to be talking to two people, Jonathan Cunningham, and we're talking to Mark Tops, and we're going to be discussing being a registered manager of care services, what that means, how the discussion around workforce within social care specifically needs to change. I've just had a pre-call with them, and we've talked about the perception of social care, the professionalism about it. These are things that are like just bandied about on the news, but what does that actually mean? We're going to be talking about NVQs. Were they any use? How are we training our care staff now? What should we be doing? So I'm really, really excited about that one, because that's kind of stuff I love to talk about as well. But of course, if there's other things that you think we need to be talking about, people we need to reach out to, again, just get in touch. We're on all the social media, so do stay in touch with us. Thank you all very much for tuning in. And I will leave you now. Have a lovely weekend and take care.